picked up his mat and what? Walked. It didn't say he picked up his mat, holy cow, jumped around, came back to Jesus' feet. And it says, you just healed me who's been sitting on this concrete slab for 38 years. I'll go wherever you go. He picked up his mat and he walked. So there is an interesting perspective here is, listen, miracles attest to who Jesus is. They don't save you. They could lead to this salvation, but who saves alone? Jesus does, right? So sure, a miracle would be fantastic. Certainly some that are just really needed today. But the reality is how easy it is to have this miracle and somehow you get up and walk. Thanks for fixing that, Jesus. I'm on my way. Okay, he says, but he replied, this is the man to the people, the Pharisees, I'm assuming, the Jews. The man who made me well said to me, pick up your mat and walk. And so they asked him, who is this fellow who told you to pick it up and walk? The man who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. Later, Jesus found him at the temple and said to him, see, you are made well again. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you. This man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. Now, we can't forget the first couple of chapters of the Bible where Jesus is gaining serious popularity. He has done some of the most miraculous things. You don't have them all in the book of John. There's other ones mentioned throughout Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And so you have Jesus doing amazing things, right? And word about him has traveled from all over this area because they're wondering, is this the Messiah? The word of John the Baptist would have been completely well known because they were, even in all their brilliance, willing to ask him if he was Elijah, if he was the prophet, or if he was the Christ himself. So this word, and then of course you have John the Baptist saying, no, this is Jesus, he's the man. And so what do you think? They would have went back and said, hey, what's going on? Obviously we have proof of that because Nicodemus was somehow thinking, you know what, we sat around and talked about you, Jesus, you're something special. We know you're from God. So the verbiage is there. Jesus is well known. He knows what's going on, and yet somehow he comes to this situation, he slips away. And what you have here is you have Jesus had to go find this guy. Where was he at? He's in the temple. And Blake had a good point here because obviously Jesus, when he does heal people, at least with leprosy, I'm not sure with everything, but you would have to go present yourself to the priest. And I hadn't considered that, so he threw the nugget and ruined my whole day. Because now I have to like reconfigure. But the perspective is I was kind of mad at the guy. Because I'm thinking, you know, you just went to church when the groom is in your midst. Right? And so I'm thinking, wouldn't you want to hang here instead of here? Right? Especially with how warped and messed up it got. But nonetheless, he might have been obedient, might have not. But certainly Jesus didn't tell him to go and he didn't know it was Jesus. But certainly if he had known that, yes, when I get healed, I must go submit myself to the priest, then certainly he would have been a good law-abiding citizen. So Jesus finds him and says, see, you are made well again. Now this is a big hang-up for everybody. I'm not exactly sure how to explain it, and I don't understand why it's a hang-up. It says, stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you. And then the man went away and told the Jews. And so it's like, you got to, in this perspective, in the book of James, I think it is, what does it say about sin? I think Seth knows. Where's Seth?
Hey.
Oh, there you are.
What does it say about who?
Sin. What does sin do? Sin, when it has...
when it's fully birthed, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Does anybody know that verse?
Sin, I think is it sin when it's fully grown, leads to death or something?
Yeah. So sin ultimately has one goal. You die. Right? It's simple. Adam had the problem. He had it going on, and somehow sin comes in, and certainly you die. Did he die on the spot? Absolutely not. But now he is dying. And so sin has consequences. And so I'm not saying that sin got this man to the position that he's in, but certainly if it did, right, say he was doing something that brought him to this conclusion, then certainly it would make sense that Jesus was saying, listen, stop doing this because what you're doing leads to death, right? So if you're mixed up in things like, say you just feel like going out and murdering people, right, certainly that could lead to death quicker than if you weren't murdering people. You guys agree? So Jesus would say, okay, listen, now that I've kind of fixed you in this whole murder thing, could you quit? Because you might die. You know, so there's a perspective that obviously sin leads to death. And so that's what I see here. He says,
James 1:15.
James 1:15, if you want to read it. And so it says, See, you are made well again. Stop sinning or something worse may happen to you. And so he's given him an encouragement here and says, listen, quit getting mixed up in this stuff. And I do think it's interesting that the scriptures don't identify with the fact that he, again, wanted to share his life with the Lord, the very one who saved him, the very one who fixed it, right? And he says the man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. So he goes straight in and gives the Jews, the leaders, exactly what they wanted, as opposed to what did Jesus want from this man? He wanted his heart. He wanted his everything, you know? And so anyway, the guy comes back in a little tattletale. So because Jesus was doing these things on the Sabbath, the Jews persecuted him. Jesus said to him, my Father is always at work to this very day, and I too am working. For this reason the Jews tried all the harder to kill him. Interesting, huh? Don't pick up your mat on the Sabbath, but we'll kill you on the Sabbath. Murder is not work, apparently. But we don't worry about the Ten Commandments because that'd be reading. Anyway, we'll go on. Not only was he breaking the Sabbath, right? They wanted to kill him because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. So you see Jesus really starting to portray himself in the role that he is, right? And so I think it's interesting that instead of this joyous moment of miraculous healing, this guy can now officially walk into the temple and participate in what God wanted to do, and he can now be in this thing and he can participate. He comes up and these guys are thinking, how dare you heal somebody on the Sabbath? That is unacceptable. That's a work, right? And then I think it's funny that they're willing to kill him, which is huge. But you have to imagine, 193 years or so before, we had a pig sacrificed on the holy place, right? There's serious pendulum swinging here. And so because of this, we swung it all the way back this way. It was in the middle at one point because we thought we need to preserve this thing. And now it swings all the way over here. And so you have it all through history. That we swing too far the other way. So in 19, Jesus gave them this answer. I tell you the truth. The Son can do nothing by himself. He can only do what he sees the Father doing. Because whatever the Father does, the Son also does. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all he does. Yes, to your amazement, he will show him. Yes, to your amazement, he will show him even greater things than these. For just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, even so the Son gives life to whom he is pleased to give it. Moreover, the Father judges no one, but he has entrusted all judgment to the Son, that all may honor the Son just as they honor the Father. He who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Jesus is just laying out on exactly who he is. Now, you can imagine this coming across your ears as a law-abiding, complete Bible student of the day, and you're thinking, who does this guy think he is? He's claiming to be God, but he is not. That's the way they're looking at it, right? Now, mind you, Jesus starts to get the little rebuke later on in the Scriptures and one other of the Gospels, as he starts to say, listen, you know the signs of the time, yet you don't know me. You don't know me. And so this is the breeding ground. We know that these next couple of years are very, very important. They had already lost capital punishment, right? Probably 30-ish years before that. And so obviously the scripture of, the scepter will not depart from Judah until Shiloh comes, right? To whom it belongs. They had lost that whole scepter thing. They had lost the corporal punishment. And Rome takes over and all of a sudden there's just no thing. And that certainly they hadn't recognized that Jesus was on the turf and already born. And so they're noticing all these things. And then you do the math with Daniel. And you start to figure out, when is the Messiah coming? When is the Messiah coming? And that's why John the Baptist was almost welcomed. He was almost welcomed because he had the holiness. He had come in and just had this perfect, suffering servant type person about him. This complete holiness. He was so much more accepted as the Christ, right? And Jesus comes